So this is the first video of how to construct the pants. So what I like to do is I lay out my pattern pieces on the table like this so I can see how to match everything up. You have your center, this is your center front, which is a double notch here, and this is your center back, which is a three notches there. So this is the back. You can tell the difference between the back and the front because the front is a smaller scoop and the back has a deeper scoop. So this particular fabric, it's hard to tell what's the right and wrong side. So remember the technique that I taught y'all was to put an X, which shows that this is the wrong side, and a B is for back. And then for the front, I have an X for the wrong side and an F for the front, and I did that for both sides. Both sides are marked. So what we're going to do first is we're going to put one front and one back together, right sides together always, unless it tells you differently. So we're going to put right sides together and we're going to put the side seams together. So this is the area here, this area right here, we're going to put together on there. So we're going to take a front and a back, put right sides together and pin it at the side seam. So these are called side seams. So I'm going to take one of these and one of these, put that to the side. So this is the wrong side, so I'm going to flip it over, and that's the front. And then I'm going to put, this is the back, and I'm going to put right sides together. So remember, this is the wrong side, so I'm going to put right sides together, and I'm going to match my edges. So I'm going to start here at the top where the waistband would go, and I'm going to pin, and I'm going to go through all layers and then come back up like so. Then I'm also going to match the notch. So if you did it correctly, you should have a notch right there on the front and the back, and pin that in place. Then the other thing I like to do is I like to go all the way down to where the hem would go in the pants, and I pin those edges together. It's real important that your edges are together. So make sure they're together. So you're going to pin down here. And then now I'm going to go back and re-pin the center part between the top and the bottom, making sure my edges match here. There. And a couple more pins here. And then you're going to do the same thing to the other leg, but I'm not going to show that in the video. You're just going to repeat that. The other thing I want to show you is when you pin the front and back together, do you see how this is different? Those won't match. Don't try pinning them together. Don't try putting them together. Don't try putting the top up here together. You're just pinning the side here. This will you'll put this stuff together later on in another step. But the only thing we're worried about right now is just pinning the side seam, which we just did. So now you're going to go to your machine. And we're going to sew. Our seam allowance is going to be 5/8, which is 1, 2, 3. It's the third line from the edge of the foot. All right, and so I'm going to take a couple stitches. If I can find the power pedal. Okay, take a couple stitches, and then I'm going to back tack here secure that so it doesn't come out. We don't sew over pins. So I'm sewing up to my pin, and then I'll stop, pull that. And as I'm sewing, I'm just double checking my pinning to make sure that my edges are together. I'm at the end, so I'm going to back tack these stitches, and now I've completed my seam here. So the next thing we got to do is we need to do a seam finish, because if we don't take care of that seam on the edges here, it'll start to unravel. So you can kind of see here, I can pull these little threads like that. It'll unravel. So if you put this in the wash, eventually it'll unravel itself and could pull out your seam. So the next thing you're gonna do is we're gonna do a seam finish. So I'm gonna open up that seam, and it's gonna be by itself. So you're not sewing anything other than just this seam allowance from where you stitched to the edge. And we're gonna move the sewing machine. Let's see if I can move this so you can see what I'm doing here. This little lever here, you're gonna move that up to where the green little the red indicator is on 12 there. So that's going to be an overcast stitch that'll give your seam a nice seam finish. So how you set up the machine for that was you'll move that lever to 12. The green indicator will be on 4, and the red will be on 12. Then you're going to take this top dial here, and you're going to move the big dial to 5. It's the big dial. It's not the center dial. It's the big dial. And then make sure that your stitch length knob here is on 2. So I'm going to put just the seam under the foot here. And the best way to do this is where the foot, here, let me take the foot off and show you up close here. So you see how the inside U of the foot, the edge of the fabric is going to go right on that inside of that U. It's going to be your guide in stitching. Open up the seam so it's just by itself. Put the edge of the fabric right on the inside of that U, and it's going to stitch off of the edge, and that's okay because it's overcasting. I'm just opening that seam. Now that I've completed that one side there, then I'm going to repeat the other side. Just remember to keep it as a single piece of fabric when you're sewing. Still the same place, line it up around the edge of the inside of that U, and then sew. So now I've got my seam all taken care of, so it's not going to ravel. Trimming all my excess threads. I like to trim all the threads as I go. So then you'll repeat the same process for the other leg. So you can see here, my seam here, it looks like this. So now what I'm going to do is go to the iron and I'm going to press that seam open like so. So I'm going to give that a good pressing so it's all the way open. And you'll do the same thing for the other leg.